because you can lose so much money like that. Spring Prep 101, Andrew, people putting their house on the market right now. We're both dealing with it right now a lot and telling people what to do.
The grass is all matted down and gross. And I tell you what, you're not supposed to get out there and rake your yards this early, but I'll tell you what, curb appeal is very important. And when the sand gets swept up by the street sweeper, you should also be doing your driveways and your sidewalks. And a lot of times there's a lot of extra debris outside, because I'll tell you what, trying to get those people in the door, Chris and I have talked about this for years. Curb appeal is probably one of the most important things you can do. Some of the best returns on investment for you that are easy, obviously, is cleaning. I love to take the old backpack blower and just stand some of the grass up that's kind of laying down, or have somebody that does that stuff for you. Flip your mulch if you could real quick and make it look like it just was redone. Or add top dress it. Pots outside with some silk flowers. Don't overdo it, because nobody would believe that they're real anyway, but do something kind of cute, kind of add a little color. And then when it comes to improvements, some of the best improvements, the best ROIs are front doors and garage doors, believe it or not. They're close to 100% return on investment. Most improvements are not, but what Chris and I will tell you is that, let's say that you do that new front door and you spend $1,000 on it, and somebody comes up to that door, they unlock the door, it sets the tone for the whole experience going through the home. It is important. Or if they stop in your driveway and go, oh, gross, look at that dented garage door from the kids playing hockey, because we all have it, right? Or lacrosse or whatever it is, basketball, and get those garage doors tuned up and fixed.
Yeah, the only problem is sometimes these garage doors, I mean, they're taking 4 months to get them now, too.
They do, yes.
There's so many ththings that are a problem. We're waiting on another listing where we need to get new asphalt driveway. And I mean, when's that going to ever happen?
July.
It's and it's tough. And that's a big first impression when you're coming up to that house. And it's almost like you have to prep the other agent right up front and say, hey, we are getting a new driveway, and make sure that it's out there. When they're coming up to the house, they might not spend as much time looking at that if they know that it's going to be a new one, and concentrate more on what the house is doing.
There's times too where I've put notes out, hey, this is being updated, or like there was a house I did a couple years ago where the concrete front stoop just was crumbling over the years, and they had tried to skim coat it, which is common. It's a cheaper way to fix it. You just skim coat it quick and it looks nice for about 4 years, and then it starts falling apart again. And we were at the point of where we had to replace it. There was no corners left. It was, shambles. And so, you just put on there, we put a note saying this is being replaced on June 20th, sellers willing to escrow if needed. It is, like you said, Chris, it is nice to point things out like that. But what about other things like going into the fall, having architecture, having, the bird baths, or having, a pergola, or an arch or an arbor, things like that are kind of nice to look at as well, that bring the person's eye in a direction that you want them to look. So if there's a garden, around the sidewalk, and it pulls their attention to that garden.
Sometimes what you deal with in the spring is things you can't take care of. So maybe like painting is one, and a lot of times decks have that problem, and they're peeling. And when they peel, I mean, that's obviously something you're going to put your eyes to. We've got this one listing that we're going to bring them to another door first, based on how we're having them park and where they should go to park. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't want their first impression to be that deck. By the time they get there and see it, they've already seen a good part of it. I can't tell you how many times that I've seen people that, I don't want to have the lockbox on the front door because it's going to wreck my door. That's totally fine. You can put your lockbox somewhere else, but you need to put it somewhere that is a good first impression. Some people do is say, well, geez, I'll just put it on the side door. Then you can just go through the side door instead. Well, your first impression is probably walking into a step and can't even get your shoes off versus coming into that main door. So you really got to think there's so much more to it than just throwing it on the market and hey, I'll charge you this much commission, because you can lose so much money like that. I mean, fast.
And that's the other thing is the guidance like you're talking about. When you look at like the remodeling magazine, anybody can Google this themselves. They have the best ROI every spring for the regional area and for national averages of what is the best return on investments for home improvements. So something like you were talking about there, Chris, where you're talking about a deck, having where the deck could be power washed and restained, for example, that's an early spring. You can usually get away with it on a nice day, especially if the sun is hitting the deck where the materials can dry, it's not frozen. You can actually accomplish that pretty easy. Because like something like a deck, even though it'll hurt you if you don't have one, but there's like a 30% return on investment. So you spend $20,000, $30,000 on a deck, brand new deck, and you're like, hey, look at my new deck. And you maybe get $8,000 to $10,000 back out of that investment. So we always recommend repairing something like that on a major item. And when you're flipping through those books, a lot of times it doesn't explain, you're better off putting some new fingernail polish on that deck than you are to replace the whole hand.
Speaking about a deck, sometimes you have a railing that looks like crap, and sometimes you just put the top rail on. It totally changes the whole look of it.